You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we interrupt this broadcast to bring you a fab fact.
We are fighting to clear our name in the randomizer.
and we're fighting cancer Spectrum style with Lloyd Scott
Core. All coming up in Pod 253.
of the Jerry Anderson Poddy Podcast.
Don't call it that.
Sauce.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Jerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Sorry, yeah.
253.
Yeah.
pods
I
in.
won't say that again.
And you're
Poddy
calling it Poddy
Podcast. No,
Podcast.
I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me.
All right,
yeah.
Dicky.
Yeah, all right.
Dickie
I
James.
really regret it now. I knew I would.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, but anyway, no, it's
Yes.
actually the Jerry Anderson Podcast,
That's right. That's why we're here.
number 253.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
Ooh, who'd have thought?
I'm Jamie Anderson,
And I'm Richard James.
and also joining us in a bit is Chris Dale.
Oh, yes. What does he do?
He does the randomizer.
Oh, what's that?
Well, he's got a machine that randomly picks a random episode of a random Jerry Anderson show, and he says things about it in a very entertaining and informative fashion.
But before we get to that, what else have we got coming up? What's first?
Well, every day that we do this podcast,
Yeah.
I have a book of fab facts which I present to you, and then we read a fab fact from it. And the facts are always fab, and everyone enjoys them.
And what comes next?
Well, I believe that there's a thing called the Jerry Anderson News, where we
Oh, yeah.
tell the Podsterons about all the things that are happening in the Jerry Anderson universe, including new things and old things and offers and products and
Right.
goodies, etc., and events.
Wow. But what might happen after that?
Well, we've got an interview. We always have an
Right.
interview or a
We
feature
do.
of some sort. And this time we've got a charity marathon runner, Lloyd Scott, who is doing something very, very special with this year's London Marathon.
Oh, exciting. And in between all of that, what might we expect to hear?
Well, I guess probably emails and messages and tweets and comments from the Podsterons from around the Jerry Anderson universe. Does that sound about
Right.
right?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that'll be
Well-
it after the randomizer at the end, of course.
So should we head straight on into the first item from the podcast?
Oh, yes, this is weird. I feel very uncomfortable. But how has this happened? Yeah.
Okay.
What's that first section, Richard James?
It's Fab Facts.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Right, sorry, I've just got to shake that off because,
Yeah, it was a bit strange, wasn't it? Strange way to start.
yeah. Can we go back to normal for next week, please?
Yeah, I think we will, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay, so getting us back into the swing of things,
Yes.
I've got a book of fab facts.
Oh, deep joy.
There it is. Don't worry.
oh, yeah.
It's too soon to shout fab. Because
okay.
every week, Podsterons, as you may or may not know, depending on how familiar you are with the Jerry Anderson podcast, I flick through the book, Richard shouts fab at a random moment, which stops me upon a random page. And randomly, upon that random page, very much like the randomizer, in fact,
yeah.
there is, hopefully, a fab fact.
Yes,
So,
hopefully.
Richard James, are you primed and ready to cry fab?
Born, primed and ready to cry fab.
That was greatly booming, that. Well, here come the pages.
Fab! Oh, what was that? A little dribble at the end.
There was no dribble at the end, thank you very much.
Okay.
What an accusation! How dare you? No, there was no
No?
dribble. I think they just must have been a weird soundy artifact
Right.
thing. Anyway,
Really?
Richard James, how many
Yes.
episodes of Thunderbirds were there?
How many episodes of Thunderbirds were? Well, I suppose as any fan worth his or her salt will be able to tell you there were about 32 plus 2 films.
Correct.
Is that right?
Well, let me just stop you there. Were you aware that from the mid-1960s all the way until the mid-2010s, you might have seen 64 episodes, or possibly even more, depending on where you lived?
How is such a thing possible?
Well, this fab fact has to do with the curious byproduct of each episode of Thunderbirds running for 50 minutes. So although Thunderbirds was a family show, the series was obviously also suitable for broadcast as children's programming. But most children's programs don't run any longer than 30 minutes.
Sure.
Commercial half hour being 22 or 25 minutes. So to provide broadcasters with a version of the series that fit the 30-minute time slot, every episode of Thunderbirds was re-edited by AP Films into a 2-part version. So aside from being split into 2 halves, the most notable addition to these 2-part versions was a recap added at the beginning of the second part, written and narrated by the one and only legendary Shane Rimmer, which coincidentally was a contributing factor in his being asked to write for Captain Scarlet and subsequent Anderson shows.
Okay.
Now, you might think that perhaps the 2-part versions were only ever seen as repeats once everybody had seen the original 50-minute episodes, but actually, for several regions in the UK, the 2-part versions represented the show's premiere broadcast. So in the Granada region, for instance, the 2-part version was the first exposure viewers in October 1965 received to the series, albeit with both parts airing in the same evening, in 2 slots. But that had the exciting ITN News plonked in the middle. Making things even more confusing is the fact that for a couple of months in the first half of 1968, Granada aired 10 Thunderbird stories as 3-part stories that they had edited themselves to fit a gap in their schedule. So each episode would probably have only been about 17 minutes long.
Gosh, right.
Now, since the 3-part versions of Thunderbirds were created by Granada rather than AP Films, they are probably lost to time. However, the 2-part versions of the show were aired all around the world, and legend has it that they do still survive somewhere in the archives to this day. Although, aside from the Shane Rimmer recaps, there's not much reason for us to see them, to be honest.
Sure.
But in countries like Canada and Australia and others, Thunderbirds has continued to be broadcast in a 2-part version for many decades. The reason for this is much the same as it was back in the 1960s. Broadcasters wanting to schedule Thunderbirds in a children's slot, but only having a half-hour window available. It was perfect for them, right? So, perhaps, though, they just like the idea of being able to double the number of episodes that they can show. So it feels like a bigger acquisition. I don't know. But initially, the 2-part versions were shown internationally, and they were the ones that were created by AP Films. But as the years have gone by and better quality copies of the episodes have come along, some channels have resorted to creating their own 2-part versions with varying degrees of success. So, Podsterons, we want to know if you've had any experience of primarily watching Thunderbirds as a 2-part story rather than a single episode. What country did you see them? When? Where? How? What channel? What was it like? Let us know immediately. podcast@jerryanderson.com.
So broadcasters are pretty free to do whatever they want with their acquisitions, are they? Chop them up, show them out of sequence.
I would say less so now. I bet you if the BBC acquired a show and then said to the production company or the distributor, we're going to chop these up into 5-minute episodes, they'd probably get in trouble. There'd probably be something contractual. But I guess the older apps, it made perfect sense for them to do that.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
So there must be tens of different variants of Thunderbirds episodes all around the world from these 2 and 3-part versions. So. There you go. Yeah, so let us know, Podsterons, if you've seen the 2-parters, if they maybe were your first experience or not. Email us, podcast@jerryanderson.com, tweet us, #JerryAndersonPodcast, and also tag me. I'm Jamie Anderson, him, Richard N. James, or him over there, Chris Darlick.
Hang on. Wow, okay. Yeah, well done.
Yes. Anyway, that's the end of it, isn't it?
I think so.
Good. Well,
unless there's another part. Is it 2 parts to this?
No, this
sure?
This was a 1-part.
Oh, okay.
About 2 parts. Okay.
I see.
Yes. So that is the end of this week's
2-part fact.
Yes. Almost. I thought you were going to say 2-bit facts then.
Yeah.
But, 2-part was fine.
Cotton picking 2-bit fact. Yeah. Oh, please, when you put this on the YouTube channel, though, do put it up in 2 parts.
With a link between the two.
Yeah, that'd be great. Now, I don't know if you can see in the corner there, Jamie, there's a bulging post bag this week.
Yeah, so it's positively spilling out on the floor, isn't it?
It is. So here's one from Big Al, who says, "Hello, you lovely podcastering people.
Hello,
It's
Big Al.
Sergeant Major Zero we are. Me and the lads was wondering if that Jamie fella could give us a sneaky preview of what's coming up for Terrorhawks Day on the 10th of October. Gosh, well, this is quite a way ahead. Will there, for instance, be one of them Fab Live thingies, what you does? Oh, and is there any news on that lovely Miss Kate Kestrel spin-off reboot revamp thingy? Tar awfully and such, Sergeant Major Z..." No, he says, it's just Big Al. Oh, and how
very
was Richard's
convincing.
Windsor Davis impression? He says, "I assume he's just done one reading this out."
Predictable.
Well, I might have done. You're all welcome. I'm so sorry. Whichever is applicable. Hee, Big Al.
Well, thanks, Big Al. I can't tell you anything about what's coming up or give you any additional updates because it's all secret. So there you go.
Is it?
Yeah, that's helpful, isn't it?
After all that, I did the impression and everything.
I know you did, but it was worth it for the impression.
Oh, right.
But then, no, there will be
Fair
stuff. There's stuff being created right at this very moment. That's all I can tell you. Now, can I just interrupt you, James? Because you have managed to get nearly halfway through this podcast without mentioning what happened last week.
Well,
And
I was waiting for you to mention it.
I know that. Well, I thought you were doing it because you were going to make a big thing of it, and I've not said anything, even though. So, yes, can we touch on this now?
Go on, I think we should, yes.
Space Precinct in high definition. Well, I never.
Who thought that would ever be a thing?
Yeah. Well, it's happened. It's available on BritBox and ITVX Premium.
Yeah, it's out there.
And it looks great. Now, if you've not seen this or heard the news, then Podstrom, where have you been? But now, sadly, the film elements from Space Precinct are apparently lost to time and poor administration.
Lost
not
to time
by
to
us.
kill.
Oh, very good, very good, very good. Yes, they failed to protect and survive them.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not do that. But we did rediscover and recover the Digibeta tape masters. Now, nobody's actually remastered from the tapes for a long, long time, so the versions that have been available until now have been rather murky at best, I would say.
Yeah.
So, using the latest in artificial intelligence-driven upscaling, the lovely people at ITV Content Services remastered, reworked these episodes, and I think they look pretty damn good, to be quite honest. Not
absolutely.
quite as good maybe as a 16mm reconstruction if we'd actually had the 16mm negs
but it
back
looks
and
like
reconstructed it.
that's never gonna happen, is it?
Exactly. So this is the best it's ever going to look, and I think it looks really good. I've been enjoying watching it so much, seeing the sort of the clarity, and even seeing them signing forms with Miros, which feels
in
so
the future.
retro in the future. But there we go. Maybe there's a return to paper for some software or AI reason.
Absolutely right. Yeah, exactly.
Who knows?
Who cares?
Yes, no, who knows? But no, I'm very excited about it. It's lovely to see it get a new lease of life, and we'd love to hear if you've been watching it. podcast@jerryanderson.com. But Richard, how do you feel about this restoration all these years later from a show which, I mean, you probably don't even remember and means very little to you?
No, gosh. So I was in Space Precinct, are you saying?
Apparently so, yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Well, it does feel amazing. I mean, it's always strange, it is almost 30 years ago now. It is strange that it still has a sort of a life, even before these new wonderful upscaled versions were released. But I'm hoping perhaps it might bring a new audience to Space Precinct that a few people might consider to be a sort of a neglected Jerry Anderson gem.
Yeah, I think so.
Might convince a few people to have another look and maybe enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it will do just that because
I mean, I'm sure it'll cause a few raised eyebrows as well because it's a little of its time.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, some of Haldane's lines. Oh.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Very groan-worthy.
Oh, they really are. Yeah.
But yeah, bear in mind it was 30 years ago, and we were just saying the lines that were put in front of us.
And then being dubbed over.
Yes, for the most part. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I'm very excited about it. Let us know, Podsters, if you've been watching, and if not, then pop along to BritBox or ITVX Premium and to watch for yourself.
Yeah, amazing.
And
yeah,
also,
I might just do that.
Would you like a physical copy? Would you like a Blu-ray? It's something that we could maybe look into for next year. We'd love to hear from you.
Because next year will be the 30th anniversary.
I know, isn't that bonkers? 30th anniversary of Space Precinct, 60th anniversary of Stingray.
Right, amazing. Gosh, big year next year then.
It is well bonkers. Anyway.
Yeah, back to the postbag.
Yes, back to the postbag. Sorry for the distraction, but I couldn't hold it in any longer.
I noticed. Philip has got in touch to say, hi, Jamie and Richard. I feel I need to pass on my appreciation on the recent release of UFO Breaking Point from Big Finish. I honestly believe this set of episodes are the best form of drama I've listened to or watched in years. The characterization and performances of the main cast and how each character interacts with each other sounds natural, realistic, and very captivating. The music and sound design of this set is excellent, with how the music is starting to be used in the same way as the TV series, helping the audience know the scene locations with specific music cues. And lastly, without spoiling the ending, says Philip, the writing is exceptional. You can really tell a lot of heart and soul went into this set, as the last episode is an emotional gut punch in the best way possible. I just hope it's a matter of when rather than if more stories are to come, as I can't wait to hear what happens next. May I also ask, says Philip, are there any more audio stories coming from Anderson Entertainment after Thunderbird's Fire and Fury? Is there going to be audiobooks of Intergalactic Rescue 4 and 5 Star 5, The Doomsday Device? Thank you, from Philip.
Well, Philip, these are all great questions. I can't answer all of them, but I'm really glad you enjoyed UFO. Nick and I really enjoyed writing those, so I'm really glad that it struck a chord for you.
Yeah.
There are more audio stories coming, yes. There are scripts being written in the background and things being recorded later in the year. Wayne Forrester has recorded IGR4, but we just haven't got round to editing it and preparing it for download yet, but I'm sure that will be not too far away.
Yeah, good.
And others, let's see.
Yeah,
maybe.
Okay.
But there's a lot of things going on, and we're all silly busy, but making progress and making things for you to hopefully enjoy.
Indeed. Jed Thompson says, hi, what I love about the Jerry Anderson podcast is the banter between Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Really?
Yes, I think it's just so funny and hilarious. Well done. You make me cry with laughter, says Jed.
Gosh. Well, at least it's crying with laughter and not crying with anything else.
I mean, you say banter, it's just how Jamie and I talk to each other, even in the flesh, isn't it?
You could actually just record us.
At the bar somewhere.
Yeah, pretty much the same.
Yeah. Simpsons Clips 24, aha, says, hello, Richard and Jamie. Simpsons Clips 24 here. And I reckon what Jerry was cooking in his Panderson a couple of weeks ago, was that the first time that's been done, he says, was stuff for his jacket potato, beans, coleslaw, etc.
Well, you don't cook coleslaw in a pan, do you?
Strange, isn't it? No. Yeah.
I don't think it was a coleslaw pan, that's for
sure. No. On a similar theme, Paul Hyder from China says, I guess he was cooking kedgeree.
Oh, Paul. Right, that's you in timeout for a week.
Yeah, I would think so. Dave got in touch to say, hi, chaps, regarding the kit bits used on Jerry Anderson shows. Yes, I think this was a fab fact, wasn't it, fairly recently?
Yes, it was about, what do they call? I've forgotten the name. It was a great name. I want to say Ghoulies, but it's not.
Nurbles or Burbles or...
Greeblies.
Greeblies, there you go.
Yes, not Ghoulies, sorry. Oh dear.
Well, Dave says probably the most famous would be the Airfix girder bridge kit, which was a railway model kit, still available today.
Yes.
For any model makers, it's the perfect source for getting the correct scale. Throughout the shows, mainly Thunderbirds, parts of this kit are virtually everywhere. The original model makers must have got through hundreds of these kits, and he provided some selected photographs and also said, I just had a thought regarding kit bits running a cycle. Parts of the Airfix Eagle transporter were used on Terrahawk Spacehawk. That's from Dave.
As well as lots of Bic razors.
Oh, really?
Yes, loads of them.
Great. So there you go. Yes, we were looking out for bits of kits that turned up again and again in the various shows. And Dave has spotted a few. If you've spotted any more, do let us know at podcast@jerryanderson.com and send us some pictures. And also, why not tell us what you think about the new UFO audio series? Tell us what your hopes are for the future of the Jerry Anderson audio series and what you'd like to hear next. And I'll read them out next time.
Yes, good. All those things. Very good. Agree. Positive. Excellent. In the meantime, while we wait for people to email us in their droves, would you like some Jerry Anderson news?
Oh, I thought you'd never ask.
Well, Richard, I'm going to ask you again.
Okay.
Would you like some Jerry Anderson news?
Yes.
Good. Here it is then. Yes, indeed, it's this week's Jerry Anderson news, and you just can't wait.
Too early again.
Premature, Richard.
So really, I should wait till you get the Jerry Anderson bit out of the way first. So
yes. Should we try again?
Okay.
Here comes this week's Jerry Anderson news.
Oh, just get on with it.
Okay, here we go. Let's start with this. So let's start with a look back at Jerry Anderson Day from last week. Well, wasn't it fun?
Oh, yeah.
Did we have a nice time? If you want to get any of the freebies from the week that was, including free Terrorhawks audios, Chris Dale's marvellous supercar story, and all the rest of it, make sure you go to jerryanderson.com, where you may notice that the website looks slightly refreshed. We'll talk about that in a moment. Obviously, Space Precinct in HD was the big news. Richard, obviously, that made you very happy. I've got some questions from people that I'm going to give a quick answer to, even though this is the news, very, very shortly on that. But we hope you had a great time. Cycling tops and soundtrack news. I mean, it was an exciting week and always a nice way to celebrate Dad's life and legacy. So thank you to all of you who were involved in having a great Jerry Anderson Day. Now, Space Precinct, hopefully lots of you have been watching it on ITVX Premium and BritBox.
Amazing.
If you're outside the UK, then I'm sorry, but you can't watch it just yet. But don't lose hope. We are working on ways that maybe you will be able to see it.
Fantastic.
So a few of you have been asking about Blu-rays, and yes, a Blu-ray is a distinct possibility. It's something that I'm having discussions about right now. It's not going to be imminent, but it's a strong possibility, let's say. On the new jerryanderson.com website, what do you think? Have you been there, Podsterons? We'd love to know your thoughts. It's going to be an ever-evolving beast. We're working hard to do new show pages and various other bits and pieces that will give you everything you need to know about every Jerry Anderson show in every way possible. So please do have a look there and let us know your thoughts. Podcast at jerryanderson.com. This Sunday is World Book Day, core. So expect some fiction book offers this coming Sunday. Before that, though, it's Farewell Friday. As I may have mentioned, we are ending some designs on the store of t-shirts and hoodies and stuff to make way for new stuff, all ahead of a warehouse move. So this Friday, you'll see a post and an email, if you're on our email list, about some designs that are going away. They will not be coming back, so make sure that you grab yours before they disappear. And on this imminent warehouse move...
Oh, that sounds great.
Yes, we are moving warehouse. We're going to a new fulfillment centre, which we're hoping will be even better and more efficient for all Ander fans across the globe. On which note, we have, hopefully, in a couple of weeks' time, a nice announcement about how things are going to improve for our lovely international fans, because we really do love and appreciate you, and we know sometimes you get a bit of a raw deal with stuff being sent via international post and it taking forever, etc., etc. So we've been working on a solution for that, and I hope to bring you news in the next couple of weeks. So there we go. Ooh, nice whistle-stop tour. That's the end of this week's Jerry Anderson News.
That was the news. Very exciting news.
I think we can all agree it was
very
exciting. Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Will there be more news next week?
Can't guarantee it, but I will
Right.
do my best to find some.
Imagine if 1 week there was no news in the Jerry Anderson news. We'd just have to sit here drumming our fingers for a couple of minutes, wouldn't we?
Well, we could make it up, I suppose.
I suppose so.
If
like
next
the
year's...
rest of the podcast.
Well, I'm hoping at some point we'll have a podcast that arrives on an April Fool's Day.
Oh,
And then we could do a whole April Fool's podcast.
Oh, no.
Would that be fun?
Has that not happened yet? It hasn't, has it?
I don't think so, no.
What are the chances? How long do we have to wait statistically for that to happen?
Well, I need to... shall I... maybe I can ask ChatGPT.
Okay, you work that out while I head over to our Facebook group.
Please do.
Where people have been posting all sorts of gubbins about their Jerry Anderson lives. Now, Chris Dale posted, for those interested in such things, the total length of every episode of The Randomizer recorded up to Pod 253 now runs to just over 103.5 hours. That's just The Randomizer. And it's probably more time, says Chris, than I've ever spent talking to any single human being over the course of my entire life. So if you've got 103 hours to spare, you can listen to the randomizer. Matt Alcock said, so I recently stepped into watching a lot of Japanese movies by Toho Studios and was struck by some of the similarities to Jerry's work. Highly recommend 1959's Battle in Outer Space in particular. If you can't find a copy, it felt like a mashup of Captain Scarlet and UFO with some great miniature effects. And apologies if it's been mentioned before, I'm so far behind on the pod, it's getting ridiculous at this point. So, Matt Alcock probably won't hear this for another 6 or 7 months. So in
Or
that
years.
Case, or years, indeed.
So hope the future's nice there, Matt.
Yeah.
Richard James, I've got some amazing news for you.
Go for it.
Well, would you believe it that next year,
What?
2024, April the 1st will fall on a Monday.
Oh, will it now?
So we will have
Okay.
an April Fool's special
That's
on
brilliant.
Monday the 1st of April, 2024.
Oh, I so look forward to
And
that.
if that goes well, we have a mere 6 years to wait for the next one.
Right.
April the 1st, 2030.
I see. Okay.
There you go. But then we've got a while to wait after that.
Okay.
There was another
That's
one
good.
for
next year. That's brilliant.
Yeah, for some time. So there we go. So see you
Start
in 2024.
thinking. Yeah. Okay, now Hannah's been posting pictures on her bedroom wall. She says, I finally found a suitable place for the print of Thunderbird 1 that I had received from the concert last year, and I will treasure it for years to come. And it does look rather smashing on her wall as well. Scott Bicleaky says, I was watching Series 6, Episode 1 of It Ain't Half Hot Mum, and I've forgotten about the special guest who was on the episode. Well, now I can tell you, it was Captain Blue, Colonel Straker himself, Ed Bishop. He played an American film director, although the character was a bit short-tempered, but Ed was brilliant on it. Oh, that's on It Ain't Half Hot Mum. Of course, famously features Windsor Davis. Terrorhawks Windsor Davis. Now, going back to the randomizer, Matthew Mayhew.
Matthew Mayhew. Great
Yep,
name.
indeed, posted. So the randomizer has passed the 250th episode today. Thanks, Chris and Marina, for all the interesting antics and commentary. The randomizer is still randomly selecting things. Well, the observed selections aren't statistically significantly different to what is expected at the start, he says.
Right.
But the randomizer has shown us all of what remains of Twizzle,
Yes.
suffered 14 rounds with Torchy, sang 16 times with Tex, journeyed anywhere 16 times in Supercar, taken 17 trips with Robbie the Robot, brought Marina home 18 times, holidayed 17 times with the Tracy Boys, I've counted the 2 separate eps for the Thunderbirds I Go movie, heard 17 Mr. On Threats, brainwashed Joe 16 times,
Gosh.
attended 6 of Father Unwin's sermons, went to the Mirror Planet twice, had 11 meetings with Commander Straker, explored 20 avenues and alleyways across Europe, learnt what the investigator was, been into infinity, waited for the Eagle to be serviced 19 times, avoided the Zeefs 15 times, joined 2 of Dick Spanner's investigations, went to Precinct 88 15 times, voyaged on the Paradox 12 times, and attended 12 briefings on Skybase, taken 2 side steps on tangents to the Anderverse. So here's to the next 250 randomizers.
Wow, what a great
Isn't
range
that
of stats.
amazing? Yeah, isn't it? Incredible.
Yeah, and lovely, as you'd expect, that the randomizer has so fairly evenly given us about half the episodes of everything.
Absolutely right, pretty much. There you go. Well done, Matthew, on compiling that list.
Yes,
That's really good.
thank you.
So if you'd like to comment on anything Anderson that you've been enjoying, do head on over to our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/groups/Podstrons.
Well remembered. I thought
only-
you were going
only
to tail
just.
off then.
And leave your comments and pictures and anything you like, really. Anything Jerry Anderson related or even beyond. We're always happy to hear from you.
Well, if the randomizer can go tangential towards tugs, then so can you.
Exactly.
So, yes.
Exactly.
But perhaps a screenshot of last week's mentioned Keeping Up Appearances episode.
Oh, yeah.
Where Onslow describes himself as International Rescue. Perhaps you could take that and Photoshop it and put an International Rescue sash on him. I mean, I'm not saying you should do that, but you could. It would all be acceptable.
Yeah, it would, for sure. All for now.
Okay, well, I've kind of brought us in a nice segue with the dressing up mention, quite by
Yes.
chance, to this week's interviewee.
Oh, yes, go on.
Not necessarily a name you might know, but you may have seen him around. Lloyd Scott. He's famous for running marathons for charity while wearing elaborate costumes, don't you know?
Is he now?
Yeah, so Lloyd has run as a deep-sea diver, the Iron Giant from the film of the same name, Indiana Jones, and even crawled as Brian the Snail from Magic Roundabout. Yeah.
Wow, great.
Now, Lloyd is currently battling cancer of his own, previously raised money for various cancer charities, but this time he is running what he believes will probably be his last race, so a very meaningful one, dressed as Captain Scarlet. Now, you may have seen him on BBC News, on the BBC News website and various other places. It's a fantastic costume. We're very glad he's doing it. So here is producer Ben talking to Lloyd Scott.
Well, this is Ben Page for the Jerry Anderson podcast, and I'm here with Lloyd Scott. Hello, Lloyd.
Hi, Ben.
How are you?
I'm very good. Yeah, SIG.
Yeah. You're looking SIG. Lloyd, for people who might not know, who is Lloyd Scott? Just kind of like the elevator pitch of you.
Well, I'm probably best known as being that bloke that does the London Marathon in a variety of costumes. Most notably, a deep sea diving suit.
Yes.
And then I've done it as St. George and Indiana Jones and the Iron Giant and the Beatles and even Brian the Snail from the Magic Roundabout crawling around the course. So, yeah, I mean, I've done other fundraising events around the world. I did an underwater marathon in Loch Ness, and I cycled a penny farthing across Australia. That was interesting.
Wow.
So, yeah, I've been doing fundraising most of my adult years, anyway.
Amazing. So let me take you back before those adult years. Let's rewind a bit, get some background. So this is the Jerry Anderson podcast, and I can tell that our listeners won't be able to see because this is an audio podcast, but you're decked out in a impressive Captain Scarlet t-shirt. So I can tell you know Captain Scarlet.
Absolutely.
How did you encounter the Anderson universe?
Well, I suppose it goes right the way back. I mean, I'm actually old enough to have actually watched the series when they first came out.
Oh, I wouldn't have believed it, Lloyd.
So I've not I haven't had to rely on reruns and things. But I remember as a kid, Thunderbirds was the first one, and I absolutely loved that. And I can remember having, I think it was a JR-21 toys at the time. Thunderbird 1, Thunderbird 2 with a little Jeep in it, and a Thunderbird 3. And, I just used to love that. And I can recall actually a time when I went into hospital as, I don't know, 4 or 5 year old or something like that. I think I had some stomach pains. And I made friends with a little boy in the bed next to me. And we got on like really, really well. And one morning he had to have an injection. And he obviously wasn't very happy about it. And the doctors came round. And I remember they pulled the curtains around his bed. And of course, this is my new best friend.
Yeah.
So I actually had taken into hospital with me my Thunderbird 1. And when I heard him starting to cry, I picked up my Thunderbird 1, jumped off my bed, pulled back the curtains, and I kind of hummed the Thunderbird theme. I went Thunderbirds to the rescue to try and save this little, to save my new best friend from having his injection.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, goodness, that was a long time ago. But for me to be able to remember that and the impact that that Thunderbirds had at that time, it just shows you what influence that the Jerry Anderson and the Thunderbird series had on me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess from Thunderbirds, what was it that stuck with you about it or appealed to you about it? Was it the vehicles? Was it the characters?
Well, obviously, I love the machines.
Yeah.
I think I always liked Thunderbird 1, to be honest. I know Thunderbird 2, but my surname being Scott, there might have been a bit of
a bias there.
Yeah, sure, a bit of a bias there,
Yeah. I'm a Thunderbird 1 guy myself, so I can relate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've got some Thunderbird 1s around my desk, a pencil case, a coaster. Yeah. So,
lovely.
Yeah, definitely a Thunderbird 1.
And how did you feel when Captain Scarlet started coming out? Did that feel like a different show to you? Did you recognize that they were the same kind of?
Yeah, it was a different show, and I think I was probably at the right age for it. A little bit deeper, a little bit darker, a little bit more intrigue, and I think the fascination for me with it was that I possibly didn't quite understand it, or didn't quite get all the nuances with it. But in a way, that made it more intriguing for me.
Yeah.
So I'm watching it and enjoying it. But there was this kind of edginess. I'm thinking, I'm not quite sure I get that or what's happening here. But in a strange way, that actually kind of added to the attraction of it and the draw to it, that it had this kind of element, whereas Thunderbirds was just, people in a situation in trouble when they came to the rescue. So I think when Captain Scarlet came out and I started watching that, I was of the age to actually progress from Thunderbirds, and that's why, I find the Captain Scarlet series so intriguing.
Yeah. It has a bit of that kind of like a Bond film thing where a kid could watch it, but there's stuff from the adult world creeping in that you maybe don't quite understand. And you
exactly. Yeah.
Just makes it that much more aspirational. Now that's a show that has some characters that I suspect resonated with you. What was appealing about Captain Scarlet besides the vehicles? Obviously the vehicles too.
Captain Scarlet or Thunderbirds?
Oh, Captain Scarlet.
Captain Scarlet. Yeah, I just think that again, where I know you had in Thunderbirds, you had the hood,
Yes.
but there was more of a good versus bad element in Captain Scarlet, as there is like with the Bond things. There's obviously the Mysterons, and that was like quite spooky because you couldn't actually see them. And then the Mysterons were personified with Captain Black. So there was this kind of real trade-off between good and evil. And then you had like Colonel White, who was a bit like an M character, I suppose.
Yeah.
From Bond. Yeah, I mean, Lieutenant Green, I don't really want to say his money penny, but in the 2005, he actually becomes a she.
He does. That's correct. Yeah.
There's that kind of money penny element as well. And I suppose as well with the Captain Scarlet and that coming up to, by present day and why I kind of chose the costume to do the marathoning, there was always like a kind of reassurance. There is like with Bond, it's always like, how's he going to get out of this? And there is an element of that with the Captain Scarlet as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
he always comes back.
At the time, you didn't realise it, but it was really groundbreaking because you had Lieutenant Green has as a, I don't know whether the politically correct way to say it, but somebody from an ethnic minority or a different cultural background.
Yeah,
and you had the angels there, ladies flying the planes, and this was the 1960s, so
yeah,
really, really ahead of its time, even from that perspective, and preceding that with Thunderbirds and Lady Penelope and Tintin. So hats off, well ahead of its time in terms of equality.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you find Captain Scarlet's indestructible quality, did you find that detracted from the drama in any way, to know that he couldn't get hurt or he would always recover?
No, not really, because it wasn't just about he's gonna die and he's gonna come back the next time. There was the real element of not so much that, but I think Gerry Anderson put into that particular series that not every mission was successful. Regardless of whether he lived or died or not. I think it was even the second or third episode, the Asian president dies. I mean, they kind of put that in fairly just to make sure that not every episode was actually going to have, a happy ending. So it wasn't so much about, for me, it didn't take away anything that Captain Scarlet was indestructible, because there was this added element of actually whether or not the Mysteron's threat and the mission would actually succeed or fail.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's a big change from Thunderbirds, where they were victorious every time. They were always victorious, the Thunderbirds. Did Joe 90 cross your path at all? The subsequent show about the boy with the glasses.
Yeah, I started looking watching the Joe 90. It never really, I don't know, perhaps because it was a boy and I was growing up. I don't know, but it didn't hold the same probably Stingray at the other end.
Right.
Kind of, I kind of love that. Was perhaps a little bit too young to really appreciate it.
Sure.
So really, it was the Thunderbirds and the Captain Scar that were my kind of influential years, I suppose.
Yeah. And then by the time they got to UFO and Space 1999, did those enter your sphere at all, or were those kind of also past the point where you were being influenced?
I think probably by that point I was then actually into like James Bond. I'm pretty. I am hoping to do something later this year with a James Bond theme to it. So,
cool.
That'll be very, very interesting. Yeah,
that'll be very exciting. So, moving on from the Anderson stuff, you saw it and you were influenced. Oh, one more thing. I wanted to ask about if the fact that they were puppets. I'm an American. You can probably tell by my accent. And in America, there's not as many puppet shows, or puppets aren't as influential as perhaps they are in the UK. And I wonder if that crossed your schema while you were watching it, that the shows were puppets, or if you just kind of accepted it from being on telly.
Good question. No, I mean, no, not really. I mean, obviously you knew that they were, but the other thing is that these were the times before CGI and stuff like that. So you could actually have these massive machines and the set pieces that they had. It wasn't fed into a computer or anything like that and generated. They actually had to do this, and you can't have a 200-foot long Thunderbird 2 or what have you. So the fact that they managed to be able to reenact or reconstruct what was going on, really, you put the fact that they were puppets to one side. Yeah,
that makes sense. So moving on, your later years and you're growing up and you're starting to think about careers and other influences. Where did the kind of athletic side of you start to come in?
Well, I was always very sporty at school. So I played football for school and the districts, and I played cricket for the districts and the county. And then I got asked to sign for a professional football club called Leyton Orient in East London. From then I moved on to Watford and then Blackpool. So there was always a very, very kind of sporty element about me.
Yeah.
But then after I finished football, I became a fireman. So there was that international rescue kind of, wanting to save people.
Yeah.
I can remember actually my ex-wife, she came from Blackpool, and there was a shop up there that imported all the stuff from Japan before. We're talking probably mid-80s. Mm-hmm. And, every time we went to Blackpool, I'd go to this shop and buy, everything that I possibly could. So, I maintained that love of the Anderson series right the way through.
Oh, that's great.
My 20s. And then as a fireman, I rescued two small boys from a house fire. And I inhaled some smoke in doing so. Was taken off to hospital and had some routine tests. And it alerted the doctors that something wasn't quite right. And then further tests revealed that I actually had leukemia, not caused by the smoke. Just the circumstances have brought this to light.
Wow.
And it was obviously it was like quite a shock because I was still very healthy and running and going on duty as a fireman. But then it was odd that I almost had this kind of, I don't know what it was, almost like a comfort zone, or I started to think back when I was a kid. And There were things like Rupert the Bear, the Rupert annuals I used to get for Christmas. But obviously, of course, there was the Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
And I think at the time, the Thunderbirds were just being released on video.
Right.
Like on a VCR, video cassette.
Yeah.
And they were being released at like one a month or something. And,
Right.
I go down to the local HMV and wait for this for the next release, and then watch the next couple of series, and gradually built up the collection. So yeah, it was very much when I was like diagnosed with that, and just some kind of instinctive reaction that I kind of flashed back to my childhood and all the comfort and nice things that I enjoyed and had when I was growing up.
Yeah. That's amazing that it came back to you.
It's weird. I've no idea why. I mean, it just, I don't want anyone else to have to be in that situation, but it was just something that, I don't know, triggered off, sparked off. I've no idea why, but I just kind of went back to that. So
it's a funny thing, nostalgia. It sometimes comes back to people differently in different ways. Like you were talking about how you collected stuff in Blackpool in the 80s. In your 20s, that a lot of people would put away their comic books, or they were like, oh yeah, I went off to college and I got rid of all my toys. But you kind of like hung on to that for the whole time, and when you needed it, it was there for you, which is such a cool.
Yeah, I remember there was a International Rescue sew-on patch that I bought, and I put it on like a blue jumper, and it was just interesting to see how many people actually recognised what I was actually wearing.
Yeah.
Lots of people didn't, but people did. Hey, it's never left me ever. So
that's great. That's wonderful.
Well, what a fantastic inspirational story.
Yeah.
Lloyd, you are fantastic, and we love that you're running as Captain Scarlet.
Indestructible Captain Scarlet.
Absolutely, quite right
Yeah.
too. Lloyd's
Amazing.
own story of near indestructibility to date, and doing all these marathons. What amazing stuff!
Yeah, great.
Now we'll be hearing from Lloyd again very soon. In the meantime, if you would like to donate to his efforts, to the next marathon of Lloyd Scott MBE, then please go to ander.son/Great Scott, and that will take you to Lloyd's fundraising page. So andr.sn/Great Scott, all lowercase, and you will be able to donate to his fantastic efforts there. Well done, Lloyd. More from him very soon.
That's brilliant. Now, that leads me to ask, how many decorated interviewees have we had on the podcast?
As in Sirs or MBEs or OBEs or CBEs?
Yes.
I don't think that many,
No.
I mean, I'm trying to think of... We must have some.
You'd think.
Yeah. Lloyd can't be the first. Podstrons, can you help us out? Can you think back?
Because we can't. Yeah.
Have we got anyone who's been on an
Chris
honours
Packham,
list?
For services to
Is he-
environmental causes? Is he? I don't know.
Is he CBE?
Gary Newman? I mean, I just, might be.
I'm looking up to see. Chris is a CBE.
Oh, there we are. Okay.
There you go. So there's one.
Good.
Surely
Yeah,
Professor
excellent.
Brian Cox must be
Yeah,
one of
you'd
those
think.
things.
You'd think.
Gary Newman doesn't appear to be.
Yet.
Yes, absolutely.
There's time.
Brian Cox is a CBE. Absolutely. There we
Okay.
go. So,
Okay.
yeah, sorry,
All right,
Lloyd.
great.
I mean, you're doing amazing things, but you're not the most decorated, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Keeping your place, honestly. Coming over here. Ideas above your station.
Yeah, but he's Lloyd's got MBE and now SIG, I suppose. So
Amazing. Great. Well, we'll certainly look out for him in the marathon. That's
yes,
fantastic.
great stuff.
Meanwhile, over on Twitter, you'll be very pleased to hear, I'm sure, that people have been hashtagging us. Hashtag Jerry Anderson Podcast. They've been tagging me, Richard N. James. Him over there, I'm Jamie Anderson. And him over there, waiting very patiently by the big red button, Chris Dalek. Bondo Fox tweeted, now this is hashtag Panderson. It's going back a couple of weeks.
Are we still on
to,
this? Have we not
yeah.
escaped it yet?
My guess, says Bondo Fox, is that Jerry cooked nothing in those pans. Mummy A did all the cooking, and I believe she was really good at it. Is that a fair comment, Jamie?
Well, she did the majority of the cooking, to be fair.
Sure,
Yes.
yeah.
However, do you want to hear the soup story now, or should we save that for another time?
Let's hear the soup story.
Are you
Go
sure?
on. Yeah, you've whetted my appetite, literally.
Okay, fine. Well, Dad really enjoyed Thai and Chinese and Japanese food, and he wanted to make himself a lovely Thai soup. So he got a recipe card from Waitrose. And bought all of the ingredients, all the special bits and pieces, the kind of basil leaf. Is it basil leaves? They
Coriander, I would think.
No, there's some other leaf, I think.
Parsley?
Anyway.
Fat leaf parsley?
Lots and lots of all the good stuff straight off the recipe card. And he spent many, probably hours, slaving away, following the recipe to the letter, making it. And when he took off the pan lid, when it had its requisite time, it had a head on it.
Okay.
Which was a bit unusual, but, he thought, never mind, that's fine. And he gleefully made a bowl for himself and a bowl for Mum, saying, I've made this fantastic soup. Anyway,
wonderful.
He started tasting it. Mum took one spoonful and went, I'm sorry, but this is disgusting.
Right.
He insisted then, I think, to sort of save his own sense of being a chef, and ate the entire bowl.
Okay.
When Mum went to the kitchen to clear up, she discovered a rather unusual ingredient that had been left in the side there. Now, he'd gone out and bought some Thai fish sauce, which had a bright pink label on.
Yeah.
When he went to get it, he had mistakenly picked up another pink bottle.
Yeah.
Which was, in fact, a bottle of antifungal skin scrub for the dogs.
Oh my God.
So the reason it had a head on it was because it had chlorhexidine scrub.
Wow.
And that's why it had the foam. So he then panicked. Mum rang their local vet and said, I think Jerry has consumed several... tens of millilitres of this scrub, to which the vet burst into laughter and couldn't actually speak for about 2 minutes because it was the most hilarious thing he'd ever heard. Anyway, he was fine. He didn't suffer any ill effects other than a little bit of shame. So there's your Panderson story.
I love that. That's great. Gosh. Well, it was almost worth having the Panderson item in the first place, just to hear that.
Almost.
Almost worth it, yeah. Very nice. Peach also tweeted, happy to be told I'm wrong, but I think that I've guessed the Jerry Anderson podcast Panderson. If it were, she says it was one of Grandma Tracy's famous pies. One of her grandson, Scoff Tracy's favourite dishes.
Scoff Tracy.
It's good. Anyway, on another note, FX Govers says, well, Fab Facts are always my favourite part of the podcast. Proving that, some people have no taste at all.
Harsh.
Chris says, I can heartily recommend the Jerry Anderson podcast now in its 251st show. The hosts are excellent. Jamie, son of Jerry, Richard and Chris. It's lovely when people just give a general shout out.
Yeah.
Podcast, isn't it? Just saying, hey guys, if you like stuff like, Jerry Anderson, sci-fi, listen to this podcast. We like that. Dave Alcock says, UFO. That was a Jerry Anderson live-action slice of brilliance. Brilliant music, had really great scripts and fully deserved a second series. The special effects were a work of genius, given their budget. Juliana says, Jerry Anderson creations were fantastic. My sister is called Marina, but she hated Stingray and that song. I bet she did. I bet she had that sung to her over and over again at school. Trigger Happy tweeted, I watched a lot of the old Jerry Anderson puppet show stuff. Thunderbirds, Terrorhawk, Stingray, etc. Dude was a genius.
Dude was a genius. What a great phrase.
And finally, Anderson Who, so we can guess what their sort of crossover interests might be, tweeted, has there ever been anyone more beautiful in a purple wig and silver dress than Lieutenant Gay Ellis? Yeah, fair enough.
Ever popular.
Yeah, absolutely. Do tweet us, hashtag us Jerry Anderson Podcast. I'll read out your tweets in a future pod. Probably.
Great. Yeah. That's what you do, isn't it?
If I get around to it, yeah. I've got nothing better to do, I'll read them out.
You quite often read and say these things. Very impressive.
I do. I read and say at the same time sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. Well, do you know who else says things?
Well, could you narrow it down a bit?
He says things while watching things.
Narrow it down a bit more?
He says things while watching things randomly.
Is it Chris Dale?
It is. It's only bloody Chris Dale. And he's just appeared to do his randomizer, yes.
Oh, good, excellent.
So, very shortly, he will be pressing a big red button on his randomizer and randomly watching a random Jerry Anderson episode from a random show. So,
okay, well, you say shortly, do you mean now?
I mean, literally now.
Oh, hello everyone. Sorry, no time for a full introduction today, as the button has already been pressed by good old Maya here. Yes, the thing, the piece of paper, remember? Yes, that's the one. Go on, read out what it says.
Court-martial.
Thank you. here's UFO. So, we welcome back to the randomizer. It's UFO with Court Martial. We were here not too long ago. It feels like not too long ago, just before Christmas, with Reflections in the Water. Paul Foster's in trial, but more importantly... Did I say in trial or on trial? He's on trial, but more importantly, I love this scene of the committee sitting down to deliver their verdict, because it does look like a meeting of the... It's less the board members of a court-martial, and more like the meeting of a convention of hemorrhoid sufferers. They're all very old men who have to sit down to... Oh dear.
By the four jury.
I've completely destroyed the very serious tone of this opening.
Record that I find myself in agreement with.
Paul Foster is on trial. We know not what for.
They have found Colonel Foster guilty of the charge as...
But he did it. Whatever it was, he did it.
Article 183, the sentence is specific.
Oh, no.
The execution was fixed for 1,200 hours, the 19th of next month.
Wow, that's a bother.
It must be lodged within 14 days.
So, no time wasted in this episode. Establishing what is going on. It's all gone wrong for Paul Foster. He's going to be shot. And I do like that we get the UFO logo on this gradual cut, zoom in to the shadow logo on the wall. Someone must have spent a lot of time making that sticker. It's an odd logo, the shadow logo, but it somehow works. It's like, what do we do to create an image of a shadow? We'll just put a man and a shadow. Oh, okay. But anywho,
has Colonel Freeman left?
We're now back in time.
Should I contact him? No, that's all right. I'll call him at home.
Straker's off home for the night. The place is still busy, even though Miss Eland seems to have gone. Ford is pulling the night shift. In fact, I'm not sure Ford ever goes home. And as Straker leaves his office, what's this on Miss Eland's desk? It's a little radio, playing music from Thunderbird 6. I believe this is... music from Skyship 1, one of the lounge scenes in Skyship 1. Although, given what we later learned in the story about where that came from, it was... are we supposed to believe that Jackson snuck into Miss Eland's office, planted that, and then left? Now Straker is on his way home in his car, and he's being very naughty, very naughty. He's phoning up Alec in the middle of the night. Alec obviously is in bed. No doubt after a full evening of... spent with a lady and not at all on his own. But he's on the phone while he's driving.
Asleep. Hope I did.
And of course he has to dial the number in before he picks it up.
There's a few things I want to check.
But this sequence actually could be re-edited into a, beware the dangers of driving while on your mobile phone.
Don't say anything. I've got an E alarm.
Oh, no, an E alarm. Not the elephant alarm. So he's taking his eyes off the road for, a good 5 or 6 seconds there. And wouldn't you know it, he nearly crashes into a lorry carrying vans from Joe 90. And that is, that is what happens if you don't pay attention. Old props from Joe 90 will come to thwart you, nearly kill you.
Yes, I'm fine, Alec. It's a bugging device. Somebody's out to get us, Alec. I've got a pretty good idea who it is.
Yeah, considering how we were introduced to Alec in the first episode, with these, he's the real ladies' man, and the ladies can't get enough of him, at least in his mind. It seems like he's sleeping in a single bed, which is like, it's just that little tiny peek into Alec Freeman's home life.
Just show us where we sharpen our knives.
And that's Louise Pajo as, is it Miss Scott?
Sir. Don't worry, Miss Scott.
It was Miss Scott, yeah, General Henderson's secretary. But who's this working with General Henderson as well? It's our old friend, Jackson. And in previous episodes,
the most unpleasant.
He has been a friend.
You know Jackson, of course.
Of course.
But now, for some reason,
he's in the ears of the world.
We hate him, and he's been redefined slightly.
Freeman.
I'd shake hands, but you know how it is. I can't bear to touch anything slippery.
Yeah, he's only presented this way for this one episode, and it's really weird. Because he's been an ally. He was clearly working for Shadow in... Well, the only previous episode we saw him in prior to this was he was in Exposed, because he was part of the Operation Foster, and he was also in Foster's dream sequence in Ordeal.
Standard Mark 4.
So something has happened. He's, for some reason, left Shadow and gone over to Henderson.
3 miles.
For a week. I like, actually, an explanation in, I think it was Chris Bentley's Complete Book of UFO. In the Jackson character biography, he says, Jackson did this.
It concerned a skydiver's rendezvous.
Temporarily, and he felt really bad about it, so he went back to Shadow to try to make amends for how he behaved in this episode, which I think is a really nice character touch.
It would have been
not represented in the series at all, but I'm glad somebody tried to explain it, because it's a really odd shift in how the character is presented.
Joe Henderson. You have got yourself a major security breach. You'd better believe me.
Yes, someone has leaked information about a skydiver rendezvous with a supply ship.
HQ under the studio.
To put it bluntly, someone you know, work with every day, is a security hazard.
Oh, who could it be?
Just give us the details. We'll find out who it is.
If you don't, we will.
And I was going to make a joke, actually, of, Shadow is a real sort of, collection of fine intellects and reliable people, but actually Shadow's reliability rating is quite high compared to something like Spectrum, where everybody behaves like they've just taken a frying pan to the head in certain episodes. But normally everyone in Shadow is reliable and smart, trustworthy.
Well, don't forget the contract is subject to the director's approval.
Oh, of course.
And this is a key scene that's played almost like it's nothing. It means nothing to the story. It's so short. That's what makes it noteworthy in a way. This little scene of Foster having a meeting with a film director,
known for years.
Not a film director even. It's an agent of an actress played by, I think the actress's name is Pippa Steele. We've got a flopped shot of Alec just there as well.
The coded message to Skydiver, the one that was leaked.
Authorized and sent by Colonel Foster.
Do we know a Colonel Foster? Well, there's this guy. I like this as well. He's playing with the back projection screen, or whatever it's called, that's set up to display a roller coaster, and he's in a roller coaster car. Straker just wanders into frame. This stuff is a very
something new every day.
A very clever way to integrate what is an essential part of this story, the film studio part, with the Shadow security part.
I mean, now, get rid of the crew.
Ooh, this is serious. But I also like as high as Foster has risen within Shadow.
Okay, boys, take an early lunch. I'll leave the machine running, will you? I want to see the rest of those shots.
He's also doing quite well on the film business side of things. I don't know if he's a director there or exec producer or something, but he's clearly in a position of authority. It kind of makes what happens to him here all the more unfortunate, because he was having a good day up till now. He's like, I'm a happy film guy, I'm a happy alien fighter guy, and I've not done anything wrong, nor am I ever going to do anything wrong. What's all the fuss about?
You transmitted this 3 days ago.
Yeah, but this is
the alien stuff, isn't it?
Hadn't we better go to your office or something?
Worried about security? Maybe I feel just as secure right here.
And it's an interesting callback as well to the very first meeting of Straker and Foster. There's that dangerous side to their initial meeting that hasn't really been present between the two of them.
Thank you, Foster.
Until now. It's come back.
Yes, what?
Yes, sir.
That's better. Let's keep it that way.
And although Foster sent the crew out, I always thought it would be funny if there was like one guy, like one old guy asleep in a chair who didn't get the, okay guys, go off and take an early lunch, and heard all of this waffle.
Details, time.
About security procedures and security leaks and so forth.
Did you talk about it to anyone else?
Now this conversation it's taking place on the waterfront in Venice. Now we're on a tropical beach with palm trees.
The newspaper.
The newspaper?
Yes. Giving the exact time and position of Skydiver's rendezvous with the supply ship.
And very cool, the Straker walks off the set and he has to look back at Foster in front of the screen, who's still standing on his tropical island.
Henderson on the line. There's been another security leak. It concerned a routine flight from Moonbase.
Who planned and authorized it?
Foster.
But he's innocent. Obviously he's innocent.
What do you think I've done?
I'm not thinking anything. I'm interested in facts.
But it's all about to take a very serious turn. And Foster's doing his best to accept it all, but unfortunately...
Shadow is run as a military organization. We're at war. You realize the penalty for espionage.
Oh no. Yeah, well we already know. He's already scheduled in for that execution thingy. But it's an interesting way to tell the story. It's a great hook set up. Foster's guilty of something. He's going to die for some reason. And then we gradually have to put the pieces together like this. And it only takes like the first half of the episode, but there's no, unlike certain early episodes of UFO, there's no real scenes of padding. Every scene kind of builds on the last, and we get this gradual unravelling of what he's supposed to have done.
3 minutes to 9.
I've already had 10 scotches, and I'm just going to put the glass down now.
Right.
Alec Freeman and that drinks cabinet. Oh dear. And now we're meeting in a room. This set, I'm not sure, appeared in any other episode apart from, I think it was used in Close Up. It was the sciencey engineering lab in that episode. It's a very small room.
I convene this court-martial.
Quite effective as a set, but I'm not entirely sure what goes on in this room when it's not being used for court-martials and science stuff.
Everyone in this room is under oath to speak the truth. Prosecuting officer may proceed.
So Henderson is in charge. Jackson is prosecuting.
The accused.
Foster is obviously the defendant / accused.
Under Section 8 of Shadow Security Regulations. I intend...
Straker's here, Freeman's here. Masters, Ford and Waterman are all also here.
First crime that can be perpetrated against our organization. Espionage.
They also have a really nice, quite large picture of Moonbase on the wall.
It is right to speak at this time.
Very well. The prosecuting officer will proceed.
My first witness...
Who's it going to be?
Lieutenant Ford.
Oh, that's surprising. And this is a nice sequence because it actually gives Ford and, to a certain extent, Waterman...
You are Lieutenant Keith.
...more interesting things to do than they would normally get.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize the apparatus on the table beside you?
Ford explaining the principles of this little box thingy.
Used in shadow control.
And getting carried away with the explanation.
Will you tell us how it works?
It's a nice bit of comedy for Keith Alexander.
There are a series of electro-scanners positioned in series.
Lieutenant.
We're very stupid. Can you dial it down?
The explanation as simple as possible.
Yes, sir. The information is inserted here.
In what form is this information?
Handwritten on a standard input docket.
Like this?
Yes.
I also like how Jackson behaves with his witnesses. He's very friendly and very chummy to the certain extent that with Waterman, it almost he ends up basically humiliating the guy. But
this device is programmed.
It's almost a respect from Jackson for Ford and his knowledge. It's a very nice way to treat a character who, I mean, in early episodes was just credited as Shadow Radio Operator.
A message for transmission.
But now it's like, this is an actual person. He knows his stuff. He's very clever. He's, as Jackson said there, he's a senior officer in Shadow HQ, despite the fact that, depending on what episode you watch, he's either been there for 10 years or 5 minutes.
Colonel Foster's.
And Colonel Foster's.
Oh, no.
I see.
Yes. Foster is one of the few people allowed to use the machine.
And transmit it automatically.
Yes, sir.
But a record is kept of the input.
Yes, in the coder's memory bank.
So that if you, for example, wanted to, Lieutenant, you could check the content of a transmission.
Yes, sir.
And so could anyone else in the control room at the time.
So anyone can see what messages were sent out. However, there is one barrier to that.
You check the content of the transmission.
You select the relevant number on these keys and the information is printed out.
On another card similar to this?
Yes, sir.
It's also nice that Jackson understands the world of Shadow that he's up against here.
In code, as it was transmitted.
He's not just about the medical and psychiatric side of things. He's also interested in the technical stuff. Realizing that, yeah, anyone can call up the information, but...
was the last computer run of this kind?
They then need to decode it with a computer run.
2 weeks ago. And the transmissions concerned in the security leak were both sent within the last 5 days. That's all, Lieutenant.
And Ford has this little sad look over at Foster. He's like, oh, I wanted to help my friend and I blew it.
Waterman, come forward, please.
And here's someone else who's going to completely blow it.
Captain Lou Waterman, at present commanding officer Skydiver.
But next week, considering the random nature of the episode broadcast orders, I could be back on the moon. I might not even be on the show anymore. So at present, commanding officer Skydiver.
Transmitted to your submarine.
But this is
Colonel Foster.
No.
Jackson dialing down the volume of his voice.
Well, until we receive confirmation.
Luring Waterman in. For some reason, I don't know what he thinks Waterman is, why he's doing this to him, but...
For security reasons?
We're now whispering.
Yes.
So neither you nor any of your crew could have leaked the information?
No.
Would you mind speaking up, Captain?
No.
Thank you.
It does. I was just thinking, though, actually looking at Jackson and the way he lured Waterman in there for no reason, it was like watching a snake sort of toying with its prey. It's a very fun character, is Jackson. I also love the idea that no one on Skydiver obviously would have broken that news to anyone, mainly because nobody talks to those poor people on Skydiver.
Really low.
Where'll you be?
I'm going to see Ed Straker. He's supposed to be the head of this studio.
And here we have a disgruntled film director, film producer guy, played by Neil McCallum.
Commander Straker, is Colonel Foster a friend of yours?
He's an officer, serving under my command.
But is he also a friend?
Not in the sense you mean.
We only went on a few dates and we ended it mutually.
Aye. In your opinion.
Yes, this is an episode that I feel... the Straker-Foster relationship is probably the strongest in the entire series. I think far more even by the end than the Straker-Freeman one, simply due to the fact that Freeman was gone by the end of the series. But there is an interesting development in their relationship.
Facts.
Where you could almost say, there's not a romance as such, but what's the word? Broship. There's something there, and I don't know if it's like a father-son thing or a sort of mentor teaching a student kind of thing.
Psychiatric.
But there is a definite personal
on his past record as an air
bond. I was going to say link, but it's stronger than link. It's bond, and you see that in episodes like this, and also Ordeal. I think is another one where you really get Foster's sense of what he thinks he means to Straker.
Yes, it is.
Commander, would you read out aloud, please, the last paragraph?
And of course, Straker would go to the bat like this for any of his men if he thought they were innocent.
Security risk, and we recommend Class A clearance.
But there's something between him and Foster. There's some spark, and I don't know if it's down to the actors or just
you will see that
how it's written.
I was one of the examining officers on that report.
Oh dear, that doesn't help.
Yes, your signature is here.
Because I tried to sort of think, okay, maybe this isn't the real Jackson that we know from the rest of the series. Maybe this isn't Doug Jackson. This is his brother, Dougal Jackson, who is a naughty man who works for Henderson. But I just can't get that whole
we'll resume at 1400.
Jackson working for Henderson thing to fit with the other episodes. It's so... Really, I'm sure it just comes down to the fact we need someone to be the prosecutor, and by far Vladek Sheybal is the most qualified member of the cast, the regular cast, to do that. It just doesn't fit with the character of the rest of the series, and I suppose to a certain extent, it was only after this that he was firmly established as working for Shadow, so it was only in retrospect that this discontinuity was created, but when you look back over the whole series, this episode kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. And there's some definite proof there that was the same character from Exposed who brought Foster into the organisation. It's all very weird. But there's this guy, film director, film producer guy, who's working on the studio lot, played by Neil McCallum, who was in Thunderbirds Are Go. He was Dr. Ray Pierce. He was either Koskov or Bennett in the Protectors episode 1 on 1 Makes One, and he was in 4 episodes of Captain Scarlet, uncredited. Actually, it may be 5 if they used one of those episodes in the clip show episode.
Officer may proceed.
And we also have a familiar face here.
Far the facts to emerge from
someone else we were talking about not too long ago on the randomizer, just before Christmas, in fact.
Classified material.
Jack Hedley.
There has been no proof whatsoever that he passed on that information to any outside person.
Who played the Icar Vedra in the Space Precinct two-parter, The Fire Within.
References for the accused.
It's a bit of a nothing part.
Itself. I call Colonel Foster.
And this defending guy, he doesn't really make a good job. He keeps getting presented with witnesses. He says, no questions, no. I could make a long speech about why Foster is wonderful, but I'm not going to.
Foster, Paul J., 804.
Yes, that number matches with what he was given in Exposed.
Not guilty. Have you ever passed on classified information to any unauthorized person or persons?
Never.
Thank you.
I rest my case. And now he's just left with Jackson.
Colonel Foster, would you say that you have a nervous disposition?
And in a way, it's almost like there's a conflict of interest here, because Jackson, as the prosecutor...
I'm not a nervous person. ...has carried out
psychiatric evaluation of Foster.
Reasonably.
For his induction into Shadow. So he has... not personal... Well, yeah, he does have personal experience with Foster. I would have thought that would sort of disqualify him from prosecuting him.
Colonel Foster, are you nervous now?
Are you going to cry, little crybaby Foster?
Please answer my question. Are you nervous now?
Why should I be?
Yes or no? Answer my question.
And I think Ed Bishop said about Vladek Sheybal is, when he was in the room, everyone else just had to stop and let Vladek do Vladek. And in the dialogue that he's given here is, it's bare minimum.
And the lives of everyone in it.
To get the point across. But the way he delivers it, the attitude, the looks, the voice, it's just spellbinding. He's in every scene. Vladek Sheybal steals every scene he's in this show.
Did you not violate Section 8, Paragraph 5?
So he steals a lot of scenes in this episode, particularly this one.
I did not.
Then how do you account for the fact that the press got hold of this information?
I don't know. I suggest you ask the press.
And I suggest, Colonel Foster, that you're lying.
I did not give classified information to any newspaper.
So we've gone from Shouty Jackson to...
All right, Colonel Foster.
Oh, okay. It's all right. Just one more thing.
Here's a photostat of your personal bank account. $10,000 was paid in on the 10th.
Uh-oh.
By an unnamed subscriber.
Vladek just twists these basic sentences into just almost roller coasters of interesting sounds.
I've heard of it.
Very convenient.
The way he says implying now.
Implying?
Implying? He's brilliant.
That the money was payment for espionage, the going price for a traitor, the rewards of a spy.
Traitor.
I am stating that you sold Shadow secrets to the press for the sum of $10,000.
I tell you, I know nothing of how that money got there. It's a plant. Someone's trying to frame me.
You're absolutely nervous now, Foster.
Ooh. Yeah, as much as I say, it A, is a conflict of interest having Jackson as the prosecutor, B, it doesn't fit with the rest of the series, particularly that moment there where he was like, I've done a good job, I'm so evil.
Foster, where did that check...
The fact that it is Vladek Sheybal is like, it's almost enough to make it not matter that none of this fits with the previous and later portrayal of the character, because he's just so deliciously evil.
Alec, how can we find out about it?
A Swiss numbered account? You tell me.
Alec's annoyed because he hasn't got a glass in his hand at the moment. But here's another nice moment coming up between Foster and Straker. And it's... yeah, the bond between them is an interesting one.
Sir, as my commanding officer, do you think I'm guilty?
It's just two men...
Whatever you say can't affect...
Two men just being as open and honest with each other as they can be in the last moments before the verdict comes in.
All the evidence in that court-martial says yes. But if you want a gut reaction, no.
And that's another interesting part of Straker. And we saw it a couple of times in the courtroom scenes there. He's like, he is a man, but he's also a professional. And I think Jackson called him on that, and Straker said, no, as a man, my opinions are private, and therefore none of you are concerned.
They're coming back in.
And we're back to the beginning of the episode. This is where we came in. Our meeting of the Hemorrhoid Sufferers Convention.
3, the sentence is specific.
Oh, no.
The execution was fixed.
I wonder what they're going to do with him.
100 hours, the 19th of next month. Any appeal must be lodged within 14 days.
He's dead.
This court-martial is closed.
Oh dear. These old men leaning forward going, oh dear. Oh, and another long, forlorn looks across the corridor between Straker and Foster. I just want to see them rush into each other's arms and hug and never let go. There is a definite undercurrent with Straker and Foster. You can't deny it.
It's incredible.
I'm drinking coffee and not booze.
Information was leaked to the press. Foster was the only one who knew that information. He told no one. His word. And the coder transmitter is security proof.
There must be some other explanation.
Well, there's only the two of you who are also in on this information. But here's a new character.
No, I can't give you the source. I just happened on it by chance.
This is actress Georgina Cookson playing, I think the character's name is Jane Grant.
Yes, I certainly do that.
Dubbed by, I don't know if it's Nikki Van der Zyl, but whoever it is, it's the same voice who dubbed Jane Merrow in The Responsibility Seat. And it doesn't quite fit Cookson, because Cookson is shall we say, a more mature woman, and that's a sort of young woman's voice coming out of her mouth. But here we go. Foster is in a cell. He's being guarded by a familiar extra who has turned up in this show multiple times. Probably did The Protectors and Space 1999 as well. I've seen him turn up in everything from Doctor Who to Callan to, well, The Professionals.
Shall I ask the doctor to get you something to help you sleep?
And I don't think he was a stuntman. He was just an extra who...
No, thanks, I'll be fine.
Who seemed to do like action-y type things. But Foster has other things on his mind. Specifically, Straker's desk. And the blue... I love the image of the thing. The screen behind Straker's desk. That's a lovely kaleidoscope of colours. But yes, Foster is thinking about that panel in Straker's office. Straker's empty office, for Straker is not there.
Sleep well, Mr. Straker.
But this guy's here. It's Carl Mason.
It's Carl Mason, isn't it?
Well, recognition at last from the big white chief.
You'll have to excuse.
Yes, it's nice that they invited McCallum back to do.
I've been trying to talk to you.
To do this, considering his roles in the Super Marionation shows and film were relatively small.
Hand off me.
Oh no. I've telephoned you a dozen times.
But he's always really good in things I've seen him in, and he's really good in this as well.
Mason, I'm warning you.
You say you got troubles? Here's another one you can add to your list. There's a security leak.
Yes, and here we go. This is how the studio world crashes into the shadow world.
A picture here. Perhaps you...
It didn't happen all that often, but when it did, it was always a welcome. It was nice when a writer would remember, oh yeah, all of this is taking place under a film studio.
A rival company are building a replica.
Industrial espionage.
Right. I'm giving you just 12 hours to kick Paul Foster out of this studio.
What's Foster got to do with it?
He's the one guy I discussed this system with.
Aha.
Where?
So there's another piece to the puzzle.
Where did you discuss it?
In his apartment.
Oh, off to check Foster's apartment. One thing that's interesting with this episode, actually not with this episode, but how it was later used, it may have been discussed on Fab Facts a while back, the Italian UFO compilation films, which are, if you've not seen them, and you don't speak Italian, they are still great fun to skim through, because it's interesting to see how they integrated and linked these episodes. And this one, Court Martial, Foster's Court Martial, as far as I can make out, comes not through all of this stuff, but it comes as a result of his actions in the episode Survival. They hold the court-martial because of him being friendly with the alien, which I think is a really clever idea. There's some really fun ways they sort of linked and adapted those episodes slightly in those Italian movies, in addition to all the Bond music that they threw around the place.
He would have run the standard check every week.
Yeah, if you ever want to see the final scene of Question of Priorities with the Diamonds Are Forever theme playing behind it, go and watch one of those Italian UFO movies.
I bothered to call him. He wouldn't be interested unless we come up with something concrete.
So here we are in Foster's apartment. Not quite the same set as it was in Exposed, but interestingly it's in the same piece of stock footage of the outside building, this tower block, which I think also appeared in an episode of Department S that Neil McCallum was in. So it all ties together.
He'll make the appeal stick.
Also, there's a painting on the wall of some jets and an explosion in the air, which I think was seen and Exposed, but he's definitely lost that spinning bookcase that was in the centre of the room.
I was almost sure.
There's nothing here, let's go.
Straker is still looking about the place. We've got to find some clue here. Freeman's in the, let's just give up and have a fag stage of lolling on the sofa.
And when Mason was here.
But this is fun. They call it environmental therapy, which is an interesting term of sort of working out what happened by going through what would he do? Here we are in this place. What would happen? Let's go step by step what he would have done.
Environmental therapy.
Let's check it again.
So, here We've got a detection meter.
Positive.
Oh, turned on those lights for a little illuminated garden in the corner of the room.
Okay, Alec. Let's take this place apart. Get a group over here.
I'm taking my clothes off, Alec. I need to be nude for this. I just love that Straker's like, yeah, I'm going to take my jacket off. This is serious now. But here we go with something that I do find odd about this episode, especially considering that this is an episode that focuses so heavily on shadow security.
Here's another one.
They bring over a shadow engineering tech team, all in full shadow uniform, with the logos still on their chests.
Transmitters and 3 miniaturized...
There's 2 guys working around in the background there.
Lights. We found this...
And here comes Masters. Now, Masters, to his credit, is wearing his jacket, so the shadow logo isn't visible, but I think those 2 guys in the background
Receiver.
are wearing their logos.
It receives and records the data. Then the contact comes along and picks up a tape.
And it's just fun
All this is made.
Yes, sir.
Regardless of the fact whether or not they're wearing their shadow insignia, they are still clearly military uniforms that Masters and his men are wearing in this apparently ordinary apartment block. But this was part of an interesting period in the show where they were trying to give Lieutenant Masters and John Kelly more to do, get him off Skydiver. In fact, a lot of his dialogue there was Straker's, I think, in the original script. And I have this nice image of Ed Bishop saying, no, I shouldn't be saying all these things. Give that to John Kelly. And, yeah, that may not have been the way it worked, but hey-ho.
Maybe not.
We're now in a little radio shop.
Funny man.
Run by a little funny man.
Now you listen. This is private property.
This is an actor named Tutti Lemkow.
One is the easy way.
Who did a lot of ITC things. Oh, this is fun, though, because Freeman's about to do something. Here comes a big, muscular guy, and... oh... Alec dealt with him in one punch, and it was a really convincing little fight sequence there.
Peeping Tom.
I don't think there was a stunt double for George Sewell. But interestingly, Tutti Lemkow, I think, was like a dancer and choreographer as well as an actor. But interestingly, there was a scene that I know was written, I can't remember if it was shot or not, where in order to get the information out of him regarding who bought the bugging devices that they found in Foster's apartment, they poured petrol all over him and threatened to set him on fire. And I think it must have been filmed because you can see there's a canister of flammable material just on the corner of the desk. That would have been fun to see. That would have been possibly one of the most intense scenes in the whole series. You could just imagine this guy doused with petrol and Straker with this lighter. So we're going, whoa, give me the answers, whoa. But we didn't see it, alas. We don't find out how they coerced the information out of him, which is a shame.
You're a psychiatrist, Jackson.
But speaking of information...
would you say Commander Straker has an...
We're now in Straker's office. Jackson, Foster, and Foster's defendant guy.
Then why would he have...
Mr. Webb, that's his name.
This behind his desk?
Discussing that display window thingy.
I've often thought about it.
Foster spent the night wondering what it could be. Because very little in the world of Straker doesn't have some kind of...
maybe it soothes his nerves.
...function or alternative use.
What would you say is the strongest instinct in man? Love? Hate?
And even Jackson doesn't know where he's going with this until...
Self-preservation.
Guards! Foster's going to do something, and it's leaping through that window. Which is not just a window, it's an emergency escape route.
The target's Colonel Foster 804. Alert groups 2 and 3.
And that's a fascinating window into the world of Straker, that if the chips were down, he can just clear off and leave everybody. I don't think he would. But it is like, that last resort. One person, essentially, escape route, just one person through that mirror, or that window I should say, the door closes almost instantly. But what I also thought would be fun one day to do like a video edit of Foster going to leap through that window, and it turns out it's just a window, there's nothing behind there, and you just cut to the other side of the window and hear this thud as Foster just hits it and doesn't do anything.
Right. At the studio.
Anywho, Straker and Freeman...
put me through to General Henderson.
Have got the information.
Priority A.
About Miss Grant and her bugging devices from Tutti Lemkow.
So I'm going to enjoy.
Just like I enjoyed threatening to set that guy on fire in that deleted scene.
Foster escaped 20 minutes ago. Groups 2 and 3 have been alerted.
But you can't do that.
I threatened to set somebody on fire for you.
My orders are to shoot on sight.
But his apartment was bugged.
Was it? It was his way of passing the information. It's going to take positive proof of innocence to convince me.
And this is an episode that I had on VHS as a kid. I had it on the Digital Entertainment, Volume 5, with the episode Close Up. I got it one summer.
And we need it fast.
And it was just lovely to have an episode of the show on VHS again after. I didn't manage to record any when it was being repeated on BBC, at least the first half of the BBC run. They sort of gave up for 2 years and then finally repeated it. But this is what I mean regarding Shadow Security. Again, this is an episode so heavily focused on Shadow Security. We have these security guards chasing Foster around the countryside, shooting at him. And these guys, maybe Masters and his men weren't wearing Shadow logos. These guys clearly are. So if any passerby happens to see all this, hey, who are these guys in military uniforms? What's this Shadow thing? No, we're just dealing with a security leak. What, the security leak like the one you're creating by charging across the countryside shooting at the guy? Yeah.
Yes, sir, she's in your office.
And here's another. Again, another example.
Thank you, Ford.
Ford is looking after Miss Grant in Straker's office. Again, in full uniform. He doesn't have the Shadow insignia, but still...
I assume you have a very good explanation.
I mean, maybe they could explain to her that he was a security guard, but that does look suspicious. Film studio, producer's office, guy in a military uniform.
Sound and vision. It belonged to Paul Foster.
I also don't get why Ford, of all people, was assigned to protect her.
Told us everything.
Then I suggest you send for the police.
You know as well as I do, industrial espionage is not indictable.
Then I suggest you have me driven home.
This is some fun action stuff, though, with Foster just running around the countryside with no clear cover that he can take. Everywhere's very flat. And these security guards chasing him, none of them get any dialogue. But they all look quite physically credible, except I think this might be the shot coming up where they start shooting at him, and one of the actors keeps flinching. Every time he fires his gun, he's like, oh no, I don't like the loud bang, which again doesn't do much for his, yeah, this is it. No, this isn't it. Carry on. Oh, yes, Foster leapt into a pit. This quarry, he's now on a quarry. There's a crane knocking around the place. Again, we're up basically on a construction site. If there had been people working here, oh, all these guys in these uniforms, what's all this about? Shadow Security is blown.
This is an acoustic gun.
I have heard of them. Oh, excuse the pun.
Oh, dear.
I'm a desperate man, Miss Grant.
Armed with a toy gun.
But this is another example of...
Place it against your ear and fire.
Straker's desperation and callousness.
Will pierce your eardrum. I'm also told that the brain suffers varying degrees of damage.
And although I think it's a reused prop...
Even if I believed that, I don't believe that you're a desperate man.
You do believe that Straker would do it.
Unless you sign a confession.
If it came down to it.
Somebody is going to die.
Someone I love and care about. Oh, Foster, why didn't I tell you how I feel about you when I had the chance? Yes, there's no subtlety in these Shadow Security guards. I love it. It's just, it wouldn't even raise an eyebrow in any other episode except for the fact that this is an episode so focused on Shadow Security. And in the court-martial, it's like Shadow Security is absolutely airtight. And yet you have multiple scenes outside of the courtroom where it's like, oh, security, whatever, that's, who cares. Oh, but they got Foster. He's down and deaded. That's quite a sad image.
Just sign here.
But she's signing. Straker has threatened her. Luckily, he didn't have to go to the pouring petrol on her stage. He's already done that once today, so once is enough. And leaves her alone in his office.
A signed affidavit. Get Henderson.
It's too late. He just called. Foster's been shot.
And, yeah, the door is still open, so she heard, oh, someone called Foster has been shot. Oh, I don't know, would she have had the amnesia procedure after this? Or would she have just been charged under the Naughty Crimes Act?
Scott?
I'll see if he's in. I have someone to see you, sir.
Send Straker right in.
Please go in.
And it's nice as well that when the second time we see Miss Scott in this episode, Straker is like, can I see him? I'm not just going to blunder through like I did last time. We're gonna have a nice, I'm going to be polite.
Yeah,
This is yours. Obviously, he's sad because he thinks Foster is dead. But that was, Louise Pageau later turns up as a nurse in Kill Straker, working, oddly enough, with Jackson.
When you find time between making up wisecracks, it includes a statement which absolutely clears Paul Foster from an industrial spy.
Yes, here it all is.
Miss Grant.
It's lovely the way the studio stuff and the shadow stuff just accidentally intertwines there. And very rare that it happens in this show. Also strange that, is this the only episode in which we don't see a UFO or have anything from the aliens? It's a UFO-free episode of UFO, which is quite surprising. And there's the OTC space station model from Joe 90. As Jackson walks into the room, the episode Most Special Astronaut. Now, Jackson looking very sorry for himself.
You are wrong, Jackson. Paul Foster was guilty of one thing. He worked nights at home.
Oh, well, it's not a crime, but it's still not done.
Cameras on the wall were taking pictures.
You can prove this.
Does it matter?
You've killed the only man I ever loved.
I only hope it keeps you awake nights thinking about it.
And then Jackson comes in playing this sort of sheepish and guilty, and then when Straker says that, he's like, I'm just going to look away and feel a bit smug. For an as-yet undisclosed reason.
Foster was shot with an anesthetic bullet. Jackson's idea.
I was all in favour of using live ammunition machine gun rounds, but...
Don't fall over yourself with gratitude.
Jackson convinced me otherwise. This is a fun but odd way to end the scene, though.
Just a moment.
Straker was recording the whole thing on his pen.
Think I'm a pig-headed cretinous lout, don't you? Think I'm a pig-headed cretinous...
It's fun, but why is he recording this conversation? I mean, maybe as ammunition to use later.
I like it.
He might have needed a transcript of that conversation, but it does sort of undercut the feeling that Straker goes in thinking Foster is dead. Oh no, I'm going to prank Henderson by recording this conversation.
Really very nice of you to ask us down, mister.
Anywho, everything is all right. Foster's back on the production.
I just wanted to give you this.
And we have one last matter to clear up.
Hey, $10,000 into my account, didn't you?
Well, yes.
The money that nearly got him shot.
You understand?
Sure. When you came down for the screen test, I didn't know what you meant by we can help each other. But now you're right, I do understand only too well. Get yourself a new agent, kid.
Oh, come on, don't be like that.
Listen, you don't know how much that check nearly cost me. So get out of here while you can still walk.
Ooh. Oh. Poor Pippa Steele. She thought she was having a role in a film, and now her agent has just ruined it for her.
Now, wait a minute.
Please, no excuses. Believe it or not, this is a film studio. It has one function. It's very simple. It's to make motion pictures. All right? Let's go.
And we close the episode with a long glance between Straker and Foster as if to say, yeah, I dig you and you dig me, and that's the way it's always going to be. And there we go, that was Court Martial. And what a very unusual episode of UFO. As I said, I had this on VHS as a kid, and I rewatched this one quite a lot. And it's surprising how enjoyable I always found it, considering, as I said, there are no UFOs, there are no aliens. There's not really much in the way of a sci-fi element to this series, this episode, I should say, at all. It's more like a sort of mini spy thriller. Security is the main focus of this episode. And we don't really have... I'm struggling actually to think of any other court-martial stories, and it is a very familiar trope in series, in TV drama, but I'm struggling to think of any aside from Takeover in Space Precinct. So here we go, an Anderson series focusing on a court-martial, lots of fun character stuff. Yeah, just all-round good stuff. A very atypical episode of an episode of UFO with no UFOs. There we go. It works because of the characters. Good stuff.
Ooh. That was me doing this sort of end titles.
I see, that's very
music.
Good. I thought you were just sort of being, randomly kind of spooky.
And that as well, yes.
Yeah.
There you go. UFO. Love a bit of UFO, don't we?
Love a bit of UFO, yeah. But I miss the days when Chris Dale used to come in at the beginning of the podcast, and while we were doing the podcast, he'd be like assembling a Jenga tower made of cheese or something.
Gosh, I'd forgotten about that.
Do you remember those days?
Wasn't the Jenga tower made of fudge? Wasn't that
Was
what
it?
Yeah, I think that's what we were talking about. Anyway, yeah, but he's busy these days.
I know,
he's got so much other stuff. He's been, that lovely Space Precinct trailer that you saw.
That was his work, wasn't it?
He was too busy. He can't be here messing around doing, origami farmyard animals and that kind of thing.
Like he used to. I know.
Yeah, he's a busy man. He's in high demand. Anyway, he's in such high demand. He'll be back next week in Pod 254.
He's gone already, isn't he? He's gone.
Yes, he's got lots to do work.
Lots to do. Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, good. Yeah, look forward to that. That's all for now. I have nothing else to say from our wonderful Podstrons except subscribe, rate, review, share, email, Facebook, and tweet us.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes, good.
That's all we ask.
Yeah, please do all those things and more if you can.
Well, because the thing is, if they stop doing those things, there ain't no podcast.
That's very true.
That's the truth of the matter, isn't it?
We only do it for you, Podstrons. I mean, Richard and I have a bit of fun, but as we've said, we could go and do this in a pub. Without the microphones.
We could do that, yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that?
We should probably do that. Welcome to the Jerry Anderson Pubcast.
Yay. It.
I think we could do that for sure. Anyway, let's move on. Podstrons, I hope you have a lovely week and that, you're enjoying HD Space Precinct.
Yes.
Let us know what your favourite episode that you have watched or rewatched has been. And,
that'd be good.
Yeah, we'll be back with you next week for Pod 254 to say more things into your clammy ears. And, that's all.
All right, then.
Should we go?
Yeah, let's go.
Goodbye.
I think the pub's still open. Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
If we did go to the pub right now, what would be your order?
What would be my order?
Yes.
If I went to the pub right now, as we're recording this, it's 11:30 in the morning. So it's a little bit early doors for me. But I could probably still happily sink an espresso martini.
Oh, you grubby
Because that would feel like a morning coffee, wouldn't it?
Would it though?
Yeah, I love an espresso martini any time of day, I have to say.
Okay,
Well, I tell you what, now here's the thing I love to do.
Getting excited now.
I am now. Sometimes I do like to make myself an espresso martini of an evening. You might just see. Sometimes I post the results on Twitter.
Yes.
But what I really love is coming down the next morning and finding that the cocktail shaker, the ice that was left in there has melted with the dregs of the espresso martini, and I have a sneaky little sip in the morning.
It's an actor's life over there, isn't it?
It's a slippery slope, isn't it? It really is a slippery slope.
Gosh, well, you heard it here first, Podstrons who hang on past the credits.
Yes, all three of you.
Richard drinks morning espresso martinis.
It's quite rare that happens.
How
but it
rare
does
are we
happen.
talking?
Oh, once in a blue moon, every 2 or 3 days.
Once a
No, once a month, once every couple of weeks, something like that. Depends how I feel.
Amazing. Well, I can tell you when not Richard James, you're Richard James, when Benjamin Field visited very recently, we tried some sake.
Oh, yeah.
And also some brandy.
Yeah.
And also a couple of little whiskies.
Okay.
And they were all lovely, but it wasn't in the morning. They were in the evening.
Right.
Just after a Sunday roast. So, and I'm
Great.
I'm definitely not drinking, dregs in the morning. Monster.
Podstrons, let us know what's your tipple of choice first thing in the morning.
Yes.
No, that could go very dark. Let's not do that.
Let's not do that. Anyway, but if you do want to do that, email us pubcast@jerryanderson.com. And for now, I'll leave you to go and have your morning espresso martini.
Thank you very much. Right. See you later.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, dear.
Bloody wino.
You have been listening to the Jerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.